You know, it's not every day that a single journal article can actually change the course of a nation's fight against a deadly disease. But that's exactly what happened in India's battle with tuberculosis. So, in this explainer, we're going to break down a really landmark policy shift and see how expert advice went from the pages of a medical journal to becoming national practice. This could potentially save countless lives. All right, here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll start by getting a handle on the sheer scale of India's war on TB and a really critical diagnostic gap that was holding things back. Then, we'll get into the two game-changing tools that offered a solution, see the huge policy shift that brought them into play, and then look at the blueprint for actually putting this policy into action. And finally, we'll see what this all means for the ultimate goal, getting rid of TB for good. So first up, India's war on TB. Look, to take on a health challenge this massive, you need a national game plan. And a super important part of that plan is something called the National Essential Diagnostics List, or NEDL. You can kind of think of it as a playbook for doctors all across the country, making sure everyone has access to the same high-quality diagnostic tools. And this is where our story really kicks off. This isn't just some random medical journal, it's the Indian Journal of Tuberculosis. And that incredible policy change we're talking about? It all started right here. It came from experts on the front lines who saw a problem, figured out a solution, and then published their recommendations for everyone to see. Okay, so let's dig into this critical diagnostic gap. The first NEDL, back in 2019, was a huge step forward, for sure. But it had this hidden flaw. A simple misclassification, really just a bit of bureaucratic red tape, was actually getting in the way of personalized TB treatment and putting patients at risk. And this slide just nails the problem perfectly. In that 2019 list, a super important test called Therapeutic Drug Monitoring, or TDM for short, was filed under the wrong category. It was under microbiology instead of biochemistry. It's kind of like putting the right key in the wrong lock. It's just not going to work. This tiny error created a massive barrier, making the test basically unavailable to a lot of people. The new 2025 list fixes this, putting the key in the right lock and unlocking TDM's potential. So how do you fix a gap like that? Well, that brings us to our next section, the two tools for treatment. The same experts who spotted the problem also proposed the solution, two really powerful diagnostic tools that would give doctors the precision they desperately needed to fight TB. The first one is the Therapeutic Drug Monitoring, TDM. Think of this as the ultimate in personalized medicine. Instead of just a standard one-size-fits-all dose, TDM actually measures the concentration of TB drugs in a patient's blood. This lets doctors tailor the dose perfectly, making sure it's strong enough to work, but not so high that it causes nasty side effects. But you might be wondering, why is this level of personalization so absolutely critical? I mean, why is it such a big deal when it comes to treating TB? Well, the answer might actually surprise you. Because of this number, a staggering 59.9%. That's the percentage of patients in a major study who had low levels of a key anti-TB drug in their system. Just think about that for a second. Without TDM, a majority of patients could be getting a dose that's just too weak to work. That risks treatment failure and, even worse, the rise of drug-resistant superbugs. Okay, the second tool is Adenosine Deaminase, or ADA. This is a rapid, affordable test. Its real superpower is diagnosing TB when it's not in the lungs, what's known as extrapulmonary TB. These cases can be incredibly tricky to identify, and ADA gives doctors a quick, accessible way to get an answer. And just look at how practical this is. This table shows exactly how doctors can use the ADA level in different fluids from the body to make a diagnosis. So, for instance, a reading of 70 or higher in fluid from around the lungs strongly points to TB. It gives them clear, actionable guidance right when they need it. And now for the moment we've been building up to, the landmark policy shift. In what is just a huge victory for science and public health, the Indian Council of Medical Research, the ICMR, officially accepted the recommendations from those experts. Both TDM and ADA were added to the new National Essential Diagnostics List for 2025. I mean, this is a massive win for science-driven policy. It's a perfect case study of how expert recommendations based on solid evidence can lead to real, meaningful change at the national level. It's exactly what you hope to see. But look, a new policy is just the beginning. The real challenge is turning that policy into practice, especially in a country the size of India. So let's dive into the blueprint for making this happen. The plan really has three key steps. First, build the infrastructure. That means getting the right high-tech equipment into the labs. Second, create a hub-and-spoke network. Imagine a wheel with major hospitals as the central hub and smaller local clinics as the spokes. This way, everybody gets access to advanced testing no matter where they live. And third, and this is crucial, invest in people. Train the technicians and doctors who will actually be using these new tools. And to make that network a reality, there are a few nuts and bolts that are absolutely essential. We need standardized sample transport, so every sample gets where it's going safely and reliably. We need public-private partnerships to expand access. And we need to build a dedicated team of specialists to make sure the tests are top quality. It also means updating the national playbook, the guidelines for the whole TB elimination program, to really integrate these new tools seamlessly. So we've talked about policy, logistics, and all this planning. But what does it all actually mean for the people who matter most? Let's talk about what this means for patients and the path to elimination. The impact of this one policy change is just huge. It means better treatment outcomes for people with TB. It means less risk of developing drug resistance, which is a threat to all of us. It means fewer toxic side effects from the medication and a much better chance of a full recovery. And so importantly, it means closing that healthcare gap between cities and rural areas, making sure everyone gets the care they deserve. And really, this quote from the original article just sums it up perfectly. Timely integration will translate this policy into tangible patient benefits, moving India closer to its goal of TB elimination. That's the whole point, right? Turning policy into practice and saving lives. This is such a powerful story of how science can and should shape policy for the better. India is now better equipped than ever to fight TB. But the battle isn't over. And that really leaves us with a crucial question to think about. With this major victory in one of the world's TB hotspots, what's the next great challenge in the global fight to finally eliminate this ancient disease?